about?
What have I been reading? A lot about boundaries, recreating boundaries, dealing with boundaries, since I always enjoy reading more up on them, since it is a very key area in people's lives. So that's always funny.
It is.
Yeah, it's because just a lot of people just don't want to deal with it. But then also just asking the hard questions of yourself, like what conversation are you struggling to have, whether it be personal, work, wherever in your life? Why don't you want to have a conversation? And ask that question, because it's going to give you some insight into why you don't want to do it. Because everyone's like, yeah, I just don't want to talk to the person. It's like, for instance, like one of the clients the other day, she's like, yeah, I don't want to have a conversation with my husband about it. I'm like, is it because every single time you've had the conversation, you've been pushed down, so you feel like you can't do it? Or what is it? And she's like, well, I'm afraid that he will get annoyed by it. So I'm like, okay, so it's based out of fear then. It's not based because you know the outcome coming. It's based over fear. And then from that situation, you can now understand, why is it based out of fear? So what has happened in the past? What are you currently doing? And how is that stopping you from the future? Because if you think about it, some of these hard conversations put you in a position that allows growth, but also gets you to a position that allows you to truly understand what's stopping you in this current time. What's adding stress? What is adding anxiety? And people don't realize that. So it's like, if you don't want to have the hard, tough conversations, if you don't want to have them, there's a reason why you don't want to have them. And by doing and understanding those hard conversations and trying to have them, you now put yourself in a position so that there's less hard conversations to handle.
And you don't build up the ability to then handle them, because you grow through what you go through. There's actually a post that you put up that was like, what we believe about emotions affects how we handle them. And it also, that's pretty much our perception of it. And then that something I was reading into with NLP, which is just like the cover of it all, which is what I was trying to explain to my girls as well, is values. And I like the value, the quality, and the resource are three different things. Because that's what I really want to dive into as well, because it's like, you can have that you need a certain resource, like you need to, one, be resourceful, and two, you're going to need the confidence, which is like, you need to tap into your confidence. But the reason it's a resource and not a quality is because you don't believe that you are confident. Hello, and welcome back to 100% Real with Ruby. We have another completely mindful mindgasm with Dallas today. We're going to be digging into emotions, how they impact, I guess, our identity, our habits, our boundaries, our sense of boundaries, our sense of self, and I guess also going into self-sabotage and how it all actually plays the biggest role in our journey through fitness, through health, through life, when, as you hear me say all the time, we are so hyper-focused on just these external results, when that's just the surface. Like, there's something deeper than that than we want out of our journey. And it's through the journey that we get those things. So Dallas, we already know how amazing he is at all of this stuff. So at the moment, what is it that you find to be the most troublesome thing when it comes to your clients trying to get that step forward?
Ooh, amongst the many things in life. Biggest thing is going to be fear. So even last night, I was on a call with a wonderful lady going through similar aspects and not realizing that a lot of the habits that she goes through, or the way she sees and perceives life, is based out of fear. So she had the ability to change her life. So she had the ability to go to the doctors, get a bunch of tablets that are going to help solve her overeating problems, you know, reduce the appetite, make life easier and everything like that. But still didn't want to go out and get them, even though she's been given this opportunity over a month ago. And it's coming to that. And then it's just having that conversation with her and be like, so like, why haven't you taken it? It's like, oh, it's just, I just keep forgetting, It's like, are you actually forgetting? What's stopping you? No, like I just keep forgetting. So then it's like, well, then we try the aspect when I went to her and I was like, so I want you just to imagine this is like what you're going through is me. And I'm going to tell you how I would feel if I was in that situation. So it was just like, So I feel I let myself down. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel nothing can work, right? And that if I go and get these tablets, if I spend some time doing it, I'm going to feel less about myself. And the reason I'm going to feel less about myself is because I'm afraid that if I take these tablets and they don't work and I don't feel better and I don't get to the reason or stop the overeating and the thoughts in my head, I'm now even a bigger failure than I am. So at the moment, I feel like I'm a failure. But if I take those and it doesn't work, well, then that's the last resort, isn't it? That means I can't do anything. I can't change. I can't be better. And that's what I'm absolutely scared of. I was like, how does that resonate with you? And then it was the penny, like, that's what I'm going through. That's how I feel. Because a lot of people have that. It's that fear stopping them from change, because we tell ourselves that one story, which I know we touched on last time, but it's like that story on terms of how we deal with the world is going to now affect the behaviors. And that's the biggest thing. So it's like, if you want to look at it from an aspect of, we have a core belief and then we have assumptions based on those core beliefs. So if you look at it in terms of, say, one a core belief is, say, I'm weak. That means that I am going to activate or trigger assumptions based on that core belief. So those assumptions mean that I can't do my work, I can't do my daily life. When I stand up, sit down, my body's going to be frail. Everyone looks at me and thinks I'm going to break. So just because you're based your core understanding of yourself, you have an assumption that follows it. So that means that if you see yourself as a failure, that means the assumptions are based around your life and how you interact with the world are going to be based on those assumptions from the core belief. So if you are a failure, that means anything you see yourself doing, whether that be changing, whether it be adding something to your life, is going to be automatically triggered saying, I'm going to be the failure because I really am. So it doesn't matter what you're trying to add to your life, because that story, that core belief is I'm a failure and I have fear of change, every other assumption you're about to go into is going to have a problem. And that's a big key thing.
This is why how you perceive yourself is so important, because then that is how you're going to act. And something I do see a lot as well is when people go through like really shitty coaches or like fad diets, or they restrict themselves too much, or they've been pretty much dieting their whole lives and believing things that were once true, or not having the tools to know better once before, and not yet forgiving themselves for what they went through before, and then moving on, or trying to actually sit with those emotions. And you touch on it all the time. We don't allow ourselves to actually sit with our emotions. And it's, instead of actually facing the emotions, you blunt them, you run to the gym, and that becomes your therapy, when the gym shouldn't really be therapy. It should be like self-care. You like run to different things to cover it up, and you can't spend time with yourself. And I even found a lot of times through lockdown, there are people that just can't spend time with themselves. They don't know who they are anymore, because that safe haven of the gym, or that safe haven of whatever it was they were escaping from spending time with themselves, isn't there anymore. And all of a sudden they're lost. They're self-sabotaging even more, because now they're having to actually face these emotions. And this is where we come into what we believe about emotions and how we handle these emotions, and emotional agility. So like, how exactly would you approach emotion, like sitting with emotions and allowing ourselves to feel these things in order to move forward, when we're scared and we don't want to be hurt and we don't want to feel them, yet it's our way to move forward, but we're still, oh, but this happened, oh, but I failed before. Like, how can we break free from these chains? Like, so scared of failing again. Like, that's all I know. I've just failed. I've always snapped. I've always ate the whole packet of chips when I opened them. I can't do it anymore. Like, what do you do about that? How can you get out of that trap?
So it depends on the person, of course. It depends rule. But when it comes to those certain aspects, you can take it from a different aspect and say, like, right, okay, so the belief is that I always do something. So there's an assumption based on a belief. And assumptions are easier to change rather than a core belief. So core belief takes time. So if you want to think about it, if you think of yourself as a failure, it is going to take a while to change that. But the assumption based off that are easier to change because you can quickly test it. So it's like, what is the evidence for this? And the person's like, oh, well, the last time I had a snack, I ended up eating it all. And they go, okay, cool. So there's clearly one bout of evidence. Can you give me some more? And they're like, yeah, every single time I have the snack, I do it. And then you get to go, right. So you know that when you eat the snack at a particular time, and then we're like, yes, or a particular feeling, yes. Is there a mood attached to it? And the person's like, I was stressed, I was angry, I was anxious. So you're like, cool. So when you're angry, stressed, anxious, or whatever other emotion you're currently feeling, you end up snacking. I'm like, right. And they're like, majority of the time, yes. And they go, then the next aspect is going, so if we change the environment, what ends up happening to that same thing? And they're like, I don't know. Because usually we stick to the same habits. We perpetrate the same thing over and over and over. So then we try, well, let's change the environment. So let's try and see if the cue changes it. So now you're still stressed, but you don't have access to the same snacks. You don't have access to the fruits or whatever that may be. Now we get to see. So now we test it. And I'm like, I still felt anxious and I didn't know what to do with it. So I went out and got something. So we're like, okay, so it's not the environment that's the cause. It's that you're using something to stop what you're feeling. And then the person will get to the point of like, oh, yeah, I'm actually trying to do something to get rid of this feeling. So that's when you know when the person has realized that they're using something to stop or the environment has created a cue. Now you can work through the sabotaging of the food or the snacking all the time. Because now you can go, right, now we can bring in mindfulness. How do you sit with that emotion? And it's trying to teach them then the mindfulness. So you can bring in like your breathing techniques, which works really wonderful, because the whole idea about that is you're trying to slow down the heart rate. So if a lot of people in a stress, anxious position, a deep breath out is slowing the heart rate. So if you want to think about it, a longer inhale speeds the heart rate up. So often when we're in an anxious position, we're always like, when we're stressed, we're essentially elevating our chest, we're elevating our shoulders, we take shorter breaths, and we're just driving up that heart rate. Now we automatically go, oh, look, heart rate, problem. Since I can feel more of a heart rate, I can feel my blood pressure building up. I'm like, no, that's a problem. But if we just go, right, okay, take a deep breath in, slow it out, we see the heart rate comes down. Now you can sit with a base level of stress, and then you start teaching them, right, cool, I want you to sit there, I want you to take a deep breath, and then I want you to actually open up a journal. And I want you to put your thoughts and your feelings and the emotions and the current environment you're in. And you're just going to sit with that. Then what you're going to do at the end of the day is you're going to review all the times that it happened. And you're going to actually tell me what happened and how you felt and how did you feel afterwards. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to sit with the emotion. And then you're trying to get them to surf the wave back to shore. But you want them to then reflect on what occurred. Because that reflection then allows you as a person to actually understand what occurred. Because a lot of us just go, I was stressed, it was work. But like, was it actually work that was the problem, or was it a specific trigger in work? Was it someone who questioned you as a person and then you felt your self-worth was questioned? Because it's not just work. Like, it's not just one massive stressor. And that's what we got to kind of learn to understand. What was the trigger? What got us there? And that's how you start teaching people how to deal with the stresses and actually figure out what the trigger is. Because once you know what the trigger is, you can attack the trigger. You can put things into place. And that's the trying to kind of build that process in. Other times it's just actually trying to teach people sit still, actually sit there. And they're like, yeah, but I'm going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be really uncomfortable. I can tell you that now. I'm like, I've slowed down on my study and I'm like, I have free time. And I'm sitting there going, I need to get back to doing something. This, and I'm like, no, sit there, deal with the uncomfortableness. It's like you don't always have to fill the time and actually sit there with your thoughts. And people don't like it because usually our brain, if we're not in a good position, is going to go to some very dark places. But that's the beauty. It's the dark thoughts. They're just thoughts. They're not facts. They just bubble up and then they dissipate. And that's how you start learning to actually deal with the emotions, is when you sit there and you go, right, when that bad thought's coming, envision bubbles in the water. And you just watch it rise, it gets to the surface, and it pops. And you start people noticing that it's like, as soon as you start seeing that like bubble analogy in your head, you can start seeing emotions. Okay, look, there's a bad thought I had. There's another bad thought I had. So once you can link the emotions to the food side or figure out your triggers and actually sit through some of that, it starts improving. But the key is you have to be willing to get uncomfortable, because if you're not going to get anywhere, because essentially what you're going to do is you're going to come up to the door, and you're going to come up to the door, and then you have the option of opening it and stepping through and changing. But you're going to have the fear, and then you're going to listen to the story, you're going to listen to the fear, you're going to get a spike in heart rate, and you're going to go, no, it's too scary. And then you step away. And that's the worst part.
I think also a really big thing there is being okay to ask for a hand of support and help, because sometimes it can be really emotional. And if you don't want to reach out to like your partner or someone in the family, that's where you can get like the therapist or a coach or someone that is actually willing to sit there and listen through it, and sometimes just tell you it's okay and to question you further. And people, this is something I want you to touch on before I read something out. People are scared of what their potential is, because it's like, you actually have this chance to break this. You're scared to write gratitudes. You're scared to write in a diary. You don't want to write in a diary. You're telling yourself you don't write, you don't journal, you don't know how to do that stuff. When it's just that it's like your idea of it is something so much bigger than what it truly is. Like, it's literally just you getting your thoughts out onto paper and trying to sit with yourself. But because you've never done it before, of course it's going to be hard. Don't expect to write some novel story about what you went through the whole day when you're not used to writing, but we all start somewhere. And a big thing here to also note is, yes, you're going to keep doing that sabotaging behavior through this process, but it's okay, because we are in a data collection period. We are collecting data. We are observing thoughts. They're not good. They're not bad. They're bubbles rising to the surface. You can either get bogged down by the wave or surf the wave, or you can just paddle on your paddleboard for now, which is what we're doing. We're paddling the paddleboard. We're watching the waves. We're not surfing them, we're watching them. And then as soon as we get a handle of them in the future, in a few months' time, a few months, you're not going to master it in a day. A few months' time, you will start surfing the waves. And bigger waves will come, but you'll be able to handle them so much more. And I'm going to get you to touch on that whole, like, you know, your potential, you know, you can finally break this, but you're so attached to, like we were going to talk about, the self-talk, the identity, the values, the emotions, and the stories you already tell yourself. You're so tied to all of that already, because it's all you know, that you're holding back this potential, even though you know that you have this possibility to change. Now, intermission. I'm going to be reading out something that Dallas wrote on his Instagram that I freaking love, and he will probably intertwine this in with what I'm going to get him to talk about, and that's, do not confuse discomfort for unhappiness. Discomfort is what happens when you are trying to make a change, because changes do not happen doing what you always do, because then you'll get what you always got, and you'll always have that safety net, that comfort bubble, that bubble. And touching on that thing as well, it's really important you actually attach some visual stimulus to everything that you do. Like, actually visualize the bubbles. Having a visual stimulus is the most powerful thing that you can do. And I don't care what this or that book says or that literature paper says. I feel like vision is the most powerful sense. It's the most powerful thing you have. If you can visualize something, you have power. So visualize it. Back to what he wrote. Discomfort isn't unhappiness. Discomfort is when you're on that breaking through point. You're just about to break through. You're feeling that discomfort because you're trying to break out of this bubble. You're trying to push to a new level. You're trying to drop all those limiting beliefs, which is what he's about to talk about. And you're being present in the moment. You're actually going to be getting onto the surfboard, leaving the paddleboard behind and starting to surf the waves. You're leaving your training wheels behind. That's what it's all about. And when you mistake unhappiness for discomfort, you're never going to break past that limiting belief. You're never going to break past that boundary. And that's when you rob yourself of all of your potential, because you don't want to be in that state of discomfort. It's temporary. It's not permanent. And that's what I'm going to get you to touch on.
So in terms of it, yes, absolutely, because discomfort is something I think everyone needs to not only learn to live with, but we also need to teach more of. So I think in terms of if I look from my childhood, and you can see from a lot of people who've gone through similar aspects, that if you've grown up in a very sports-centric life, or you've happened to have parents who understand that discomfort is something that we need, you often push to those limits. So it's like, I remember even as a kid, I used to do gymnastics, I used to play golf, played hockey, did a whole lot of swimming, I did long jump, like anything and everything I could do because I enjoyed playing sports. But I would always be, I'd be a little bit of talent, you know. I could play a decent amount of sports without, you know, having to put a lot of work in. But then I wanted to get somewhere doing the sport. I actually want to make a team or something. And that required to get discomfort. And that required that whole uncomfortable nature of having to push. And then I remember even like from a young age where like my dad would be like, if you want to get something, you have to be willing to go through the water. You got to wade through all the mess that comes with it, because you know when you get to the other side, that is when you have fully realized your potential. So it's like you've got to go, you've got to hike up that mountain. You can't get to the top without going up the mountain. You can't just be like, oh, look, I'm there. And so that's where that like discomfort comes from. So it's like you get taught that with sport very easy, because if you want it, you know, you got to work through it. So the coach is always going to tell you, like, if you truly want this, you are willing to put a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears into see what is going to change. You see it when you try and create a business. It's like we see it every single place in the world, but we don't often try and teach kids. We don't teach adults that that discomfort is a product of change. We just say hard work pays off. But it's like you can put hard work into something that is not going to pay off. So it's understanding it's hard work. It's something that you truly want. It's something that you truly want to see that will then pay off. I mean, I can put hard work at trying to put all my money into Bitcoin with no understanding of how Bitcoin works. And, you know, I'm really pushing hard to try and make billions and lose it all. And be like, see, hard work doesn't pay off. And I was like, well, because if you really wanted to pay off, you would have learned what was necessary to do that. So it's like that discomfort part is like essentially when you are on the precipice of change, that you have that choice. Am I going to follow the same habits and behaviors as I always have, or I'm going to make a choice and change? And it's like trying to look at it. It's like the behaviors and habits that got you here are not the ones that get you further. So it's like how the business made its first million is not going to be the same way it makes its 100th million. The way that you did your first marathon is not going to be the same as you did your last marathon. It's like you got to understand that we evolve, we change. We're an adaptable species, and that's the beauty of us. So if we look at it from a brain perspective and like the neuroplasticity, so the changing of the brain, so it's like as the typical rhyme goes, when what fires together wires together. So for the neurons that fire together, so what we're trying to say in that is that when we have certain actions like moving our hands, if we move the right thumb, left finger, and everything, the neurons are all going to be based in a similar bundle within the brain, and we have certain sections, right? The habits that we have are created by the same aspect. That means that if we keep repeating a certain habit around food, that means that if I always eat chocolate with say tea, we're having neurons fire together and they're going to wire together. So whenever I have tea, I have a chocolate or a biscuit. And that's how we keep doing it. So when you were saying visualization is a big thing, it is a big thing because it helps change neuroplasticity. It helps change the wiring. And how that changes means because if I'm visualizing the world, I am changing effectively how my brain is working, because the world and how you see it is all based on your perception and the firing and wiring of neurons.
I just
so
want
it's like,
to check there with
yeah,
one thing. There was actually a study, you probably heard of it. There was a study they did where people actually did the resistance training, and then the other group of people visualized it. They visualized lifting the same way that people who physically did it did. And at the end of the trial, the people who visualized it actually got stronger. Of course, they didn't grow the size because they didn't put the load on the muscles, but there was a decent percentage of strength gain. I think it was like 22% compared to the 40 something percent. Like that is still a significant thing for people that have not physically been into a gym. That is how powerful visual stimulus is. It is powerful. And the same thing with the firing together and wiring together. It's like you can even get stronger by just lifting with one arm, and your other arm will get stronger with that. It's like just doing, you don't have to do the whole lot, but just making that first actionable step, the next actionable step. That's all it takes. And then you just need to not break the chain. Create the chain, don't break the chain.
Yep. Oh no, and then like you bang on there, and that's what people don't realize. Like, our reality is created between our two eyes. You know, it's how you see and perceive the world is just based on neurons firing at a certain time. So it's like, and this is the beauty and also the scary thing about it, because all of us have a different perception of the world, but that means that we all can change it when it's needed. And that's like, and everyone goes, yeah, but it takes a while to do it. And it's like, no, it doesn't. And that's the crazy thing about it. And it's like, to point it in a bleak view, that if you've had a death in the family, your sudden outlook on life is not the same, especially if you love the person. So it's like, if you had your father, mother, sister, brother, even your husband, wife, partner, whatever, happened to die, your outlook and perception of the world in an instant changes. And that's how quick things can rewire and change. And that's when people are like, wait, what? It's like, because we're forming new connections. So visualization works on that same basis, that you can visualize yourself not doing these things. And now effectively what you do is you're not using those old neurons anymore. So those old neurons that where you were like, oh yeah, every time I have tea and eat chocolate, don't get used, because you just visualize yourself having tea and coffee, and that's it. I went, you visualize the behavior, and now you go and cement the behavior by doing it. And people are like, wow, this is a lot simplistic than trying to pull it out of my diet. It's like, true. It's like, because you're already living what it needs to be done. You are creating the habits. You are being the very essence of what it is you want. It's like, that's why that fake it till you make it does, in a sense, work. I hate it, because I'm like, instead of faking it, just be the damn person. Be what you want to be. If you want to go be the person who runs 10 kilometers every morning, go and do it. Do the habits that require that to happen. And when you start taking that life where you go, right, I am the person that runs 10 kilometers every morning, and the habits mean that I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, there you go. I have that habit already. And the person's like, but I've never woken up at 5. It's like, yeah, but you have it now, don't you? There's your alarm. Wake up, 5 o'clock, done. It's like, you've just envisioned it in your head that you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock on a Monday. Then you envision it again on Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday. And it was like, then you start noticing that you don't have to force these habits, because you visualized it and now you're implementing. So now you can use the visualization implementation on how to get past quite a bit of things. It's the same way when people say, if you manifest things into your life, how does that work? You're visualizing it. But because you're in a frame of mind where you can see things. So if you want to put it this way, if anyone's listening to this at the moment while they're driving, take a look around you and pick one car, or whatever make it is, right? And notice how many times you'll be able to see that make today. It's going to be over about 6-7 times. And the reason is because now, because you've seen it, your brain is more aware of it. Because of aware, it looks for it. And that's how manifestation works. So it's like, I'm manifesting that I'm going to have a better life. So that means now you're looking for things that to you mean a better life.
And you're going to keep attracting shit people to you if you remain in the same self-sabotaging mindset. It's like when people have that in their growing up, and then they find themselves attracting partners that are narcissists and all this other stuff. It's like, you don't believe in yourself, so you're trying to get someone that you feel like you can help, but in turns they're making you feel kind of like that. But I guess the question to you then is, this all seems cool and dandy. Cool, wake up at 5, but hey, never woke up at 5 before. But I am the person that does it. Okay, I get into the habit a couple of days, but then I stop doing it and it becomes too hard for me. And now I want to get into that inner dialogue and that critical inner voice, and where that also plays a role, because all of that like super glues my theme of consistency to everything, and consistency of the simple basic stuff, but consistency of the whole fake it till you make it. It's not just do it a few days and then like you're detaching yourself from all that you just created within a few days. But that happens all the time. Like people start getting into a habit and then all of a sudden it's too hard, it's difficult, they can't wake up to their alarm anymore, they can't do this.
Welcome to stories. The biggest thing in that is also trying to recognize what changed. And a lot of people don't want to sit with that thought because a lot changes very quickly and something moves us off the scale. So for instance, like I've got at the moment, my right glute refuses to fire quick enough when I'm running. So my hip flexor takes over. So I can take that as a point to going, right, all my running now is screwed. I can't do anything, right? So I can let the first negative thoughts about myself and my self-worth and how I feel completely ruin everything I created. Or I can go, right, this is a momentary setback. It gives me an opportunity to reframe what's occurring. So that reframe for me was, okay, so I realized that my glute's firing a little bit slower and I need to truly actually activate it more when I'm running. So that gives me time to slow down, learn how to improve the body, work on mobility, but that also gives me other time to do other things to see improvement.
How do you like, how do you reframe? What's the importance of reframe? Because that's the thing, like it's sometimes nothing actually changes, it's just that you never actually dug deeper into things before, and as soon as you said that I'm like, yeah, but nothing usually changes. It's the fact that we just band-aided something before to try and mope over it. We created a chain, but then we broke it because the root issue was never addressed back then, or it was addressed but then it came up again, and then we went back into our old habit of, nah, I'm going to ignore this because it hurt the last time I went through it. I'm not going to go through it again to deal with it. So it's like, how do you break through that? Like, how do you reframe that when it's just this recurring sabotage?
Recurring sabotage usually will come down to not only about how you see and perceive yourself, so your self-worth, in terms of like you don't believe you're worthy enough for things, which is always going to be one of the biggest things. Aiming to be perfectionists, that's going to be a massive thing. So if you're always aiming to be perfectionist, it will always lead you to self-sabotage in some way, because things are never, ever perfect, and you can never be perfect. Another aspect of self-sabotage also comes down into in terms of have you been parented? So when it comes down into the parenting as well, like you will notice that you'll see how you've grown up with your parents in terms of have they given you the love and affection you need, which is annoying because sometimes we don't get it. And because of that, we feel like, all right, when we're doing something, we end up pulling away because we weren't given that, like, you can keep doing it. So when we struggle and we go like, oh, things are going well, there's no one looking around, there's no one to cheer me on. It's like, okay, well, then what's the point of me doing it? And we see that happen often. It's like, you're your own cheerleader. It's like, you should champion your cause. It's like, just because your father, your mother, or anyone around you is not there to say, yes, you did well, doesn't mean you have to automatically stop. So that's one. And then obviously it's the boundaries of aspects. So in terms of how do you have a boundary of what you do? And we can talk about boundaries every day and all day because there are many ways of looking at it. And boundaries, yeah, people don't have boundaries in today's world. Everyone grows up thinking that moms and dads' problems are my problems, or you've had addictions in the family and now you take care of it. Then you have a relationship where you can share anything and everything, or you have a boundary, or in terms of like a very soft boundary where someone can walk over you. It's like, that's not how things are. Everyone goes, yeah, but boundaries are bad. It's like, no, boundaries save you. Boundaries allow you to have a life. Boundaries keep you going. Boundaries let you be you. And that's how it's trying to look at it and conceptualize it. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to feel guilty when I have a boundary. It's like, well, you should feel guilty about it. It means you care for yourself. It means you care of the outcome that's about to occur. It's like, if you didn't feel guilty, then the question is like, that's not a boundary then, because you're realizing that you have to put a wall up to ensure that your sanity is looked after. So it's like, if someone keeps interrupting you, if someone, say, for instance, in a relationship keeps touching on the fact that you've put on some weight, a boundary needs to be set and going like, hey, I don't like the way you look at me and talk about me about my weight. The person's like, yeah, but like, I'm only messing. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're messing, you're joking, I don't care. This is my body. This is how I feel. You've set the boundary. Now you need to reinforce the boundary. So that means that if a person says it again, you call them out straight away. You don't go, oh, it's okay, they made it one, because now you've created a soft boundary. So it means that it's never going to be there anymore. So you have to call it out. And another key aspect of that boundary is knowing that you don't need to explain yourself when you're creating a boundary, because it's for you and only you. It's like, so everyone's like, so when they try to create a boundary, so for instance, say with your partner who kind of belittles you about your weight, and they're like, hey, so I don't like the way you look at me or talk about my weight. Can you please stop that? And the person be like, why? It's like, well, I'm just not feeling great about it. And yeah, please just stop. So it's like, you're not explaining anything, you're not giving them. And then they'll go like, yeah, but like, this is different from usual. And it's like, how you actually answer that is, can you please stop actually belittling my weight? Person will be like, why? And it's like, because I actually don't feel great whenever you do it. So I'll prefer if you stop doing it. Well, that's a change. Yes, that is a change. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, and the person's like, but you're cutting them off. And I was like, yes, you are, because you are putting a firm boundary on that's what needs to be happening. That's how you need to work. Because people go like, but then we can't survive. We can't communicate. It's like, yes, you can. What are you effectively doing is saying that in order for me to be the best version of myself, there are things that I need. And that means I need someone supportive. I need someone there. I don't need someone belittling me every day. And then the person's like, oh, okay. But that means you are going to have slip-ups in the beginning. It's going to feel horrible when you do it. And that's okay. When you start setting those boundaries, and once you set those boundaries, I'm like, everyone's like, wow, my life is so much easier now. It's like, because when you walk into someone's house and they go, take your shoes off, you don't question it. You're like, it's their house. That's the boundary. You take your shoes off, no problem. But we can do it with the house and the shoes. But when it comes to us and our emotional states, us and our personal states, and us and our self-worth, we will let anyone walk through our heads, trample, stamp, do whatever they want. And then we go, no wonder why we end up having self-worth problems. Because you allow anyone. That's crazy.
How you allow one person to treat you is how you're gonna set the tone for everyone else. And the thing is, like you mentioned it before, like you have to let yourself feel those emotions, and at the same time, what's the worst that can happen? If they won't accept that boundary, what's the worst that can happen? You're losing a toxic part of your life. But so many people, I can think of so many examples of this, and that just like, whoa. Whew. So many people tie their worth to a relationship with someone, or think that they'll have no one else, or they'll be left alone if they break some certain ties. They're worried that they won't find anyone else, that they can't do anything without that person. So they keep a dysfunctional relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, whatever it is, because there's going to be setbacks from that, but that's all you're focusing on. And I don't even know where you want to start with that one, but everything seriously comes down to, you know, the self, like belief in yourself. What are you valuing? Values are really important, because are you going to value, like, what do you value more? The relationship, or is there something deeper that you're valuing? Like, what is that value? Because you can't be valuing something that is making you feel like shit. Who values something that makes you feel like shit? No one. There is something deeper there that you are valuing. Is it you're valuing your self-worth and this person is giving it to you? Or is it that you're valuing security and this person is giving it to you? But now now we're going to transition into this big theme that I freaking love. Values. Values, qualities, and resources. They are different things, because it's like you think you value this person, but it's something deeper. It's that stability. But you don't feel this stability or this security is something you have. It's not a quality that you have, but you know that it's a resource that you need. So I'll let you take this one away.
I know we were talking before with confidence in that sense. So let's take a look at it. A lot of people say I'm not confident. I don't have confidence. It's really hard to be confident. I don't see how people can be confident. It's like, right, let's take a step back and realize that confidence is something you build. It's something that you can work on. And everyone's like, no, 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 it's something you have or don't. No, 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 it's not black and white. There's no dictamus view here. It's you build confidence. You build confidence for showing up for yourself. You build confidence for trusting yourself and believing yourself and living the life that you want to live. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, you want to get confidence? I went, quickest way is go and stand in the middle of a market, bollock naked. I'm like, you're going to be so quickly hit with endorphins, stress, and everything there. And everyone's like, oh, but the longer and longer you're standing there, the more and more confidence starts to build. Because confidence is there usually to get you to do things. Confidence is there to push you out of boundaries. It's like, I can go run a marathon. It's like, but you've never run a marathon before. It's like, no, but I'm confident that if I can slow the pace slow enough, I'll complete it. And that's the confidence. It's the internal belief that you've built up about yourself that no matter the obstacle in front of you, you will find a way. You will believe in yourself. You don't attach it to something. You just go, right, I am a person who can do whatever I set my mind out to. So it's like, I have that capability. So it's like, I like to always use the prove them wrong and them being me. So it's, I'm always in a state of trying to prove myself wrong, which is, if I say I can do 5 kilometers, it's like, can I prove myself wrong? Right, let me do a bit more. If I say I can be better at this, prove myself wrong. I'm putting small little steps to gain more and more confidence. It's like, yeah, but you're already confident as it is. And it's like, yes, perfect. Keep building it. More and more confidence. You can be confident in one area and not in another. And that's a big thing as well. So it's like, I'm confident in the gym. You and I are confident in cardio. We can understand that. This is the confidence, right? We've built upon it. We've built that knowledge. We've built that understanding. We've lived it. We've built the habits. But say for us to go do modeling, for instance, or walk down, Broadway in some crazy ass new fashion, that will give us nerves. That will put us on a bit of edge. But we build that confidence by that first step, that second step, and that third step. And it's the replication of that process that builds the true confidence. But if we look at it as like as you were saying, as a true resource that I have to go out and physically grab it, now we're putting yourselves in a position of issues, because that means every single time you have to try and gain confidence, you're now putting a lot more of a toll to it. So there's a cost instead of it being an addition to your life. And that's the worst thing about it, because that means that I'm going to do something. What's this going to cost me?
Yeah.
And
that's why it's so important to actually be the person, because if you're not the person, then that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to try to go and get these resources. But if you be the person, they become qualities, not resources. They become something that you have because you're being that person already. But it's all fine and dandy for Dallas to talk about marathons, but half of you don't even want to run a marathon. So you don't have the confidence to go do that. And that's the thing. You need to realize what your values are. If you don't know what your values are, you're never, ever, ever going to build that quality because it doesn't align with what you want. It's like, I wish I had the confidence to, thinking of something, I wish I had the confidence to go and do public speaking on a platform in front of a whole footy stadium. That's sweet. It might be in line with my value, but if it wasn't in line with my value, I'd be like, but I don't have the confidence to speak in front of a heap of people. Like, imagine I wasn't doing this podcast. Imagine I didn't have this name for myself where I actually speak to people. I've never actually spoken to more than the people in my circle before, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm scared butt naked to actually go and do public speaking. I don't have the confidence for that. That's a resource I'm going to need to build. And to me, that's a cost, and it's going to take a lot of energy because I don't want to go and speak in front of the footy people. I don't give a shit about footy. Like, I don't give a shit about footy. I don't even know what to talk about. I don't have the confidence to even try. So that's going to be a struggle for me to try and build the confidence. Yes. And I'm not going to put in the work to learn how to do it. I'm not going to put in the work to figure out what the next step is. So I'm always going to feel like I'm a failure. I'm always going to feel like I'm struggling because I deep down do not align that action with my values. Yeah. And I really want you to talk about reframing so bad because people know, like deep down, people do not know what their true values are. They think they want something because they're always chasing what they think they want. they keep this self-sabotaging circle. No, it's
Oh
not.
yeah.
You don't want to lose weight. I said this in my inner circle today. I'm like, it's not the fact that you want to lose weight. There's something that losing weight is going to give you. And if you can connect to that, and it might not even be anything to do with losing weight. It might just be the fact that you're getting fitter. And there is something deeper about that. You're connecting getting fit to losing weight. Okay, so now the value is getting fit. But what for? What's the value behind that? Oh, you actually value family time. You value your kids because you're not fit at the moment. You can't keep up with the kids. You keep up with the kids for half of the day, but then you're dead for the rest of the day. And then they're just chucking a tantrum because their mom's not there. So it's making these connections. So how do people make these connections, dig deeper, and realize that all of this stuff is about building things? It's a skill that you need to build, and to be patient with it, because it's like as soon as you start getting the cadence, all of a sudden you want to go and freaking sprint instead of just keeping the goddamn cadence.
Oh, too many times. So we'll play a little role here, right? So I want you to give me an idea of something that you want to do that you believe is aligned to a value, so we can kind of work through this.
Something that's aligned to a value is I want to do sprints again.
Okay. Why?
Because it's going to bring power back into my legs and bring speed back into my running.
Okay. And why do you want that?
Because I like feeling like I can actually accomplish something at a higher level and not just be mediocre at something.
But why does that matter to you?
Because I don't like being slow and taking forever to complete a task that I can actually get a really good time in and then not get tired throughout it and be able to push myself to the end without it taking as long as it does.
So why does that truly matter then?
Because then I feel accomplished and powerful, like I can do anything.
And why do you need to feel accomplished and powerful?
Because it makes me feel good within myself. And then I can actually just keep doing it and always pretty much apply it to anything else. Because it's like, as soon as I apply myself to do something, I can realize that I can do anything else, but I just need to put focus into it and get myself in my comfort zone.
So is it because you currently don't believe you can do anything and everything, or is it an aspect that you're trying to prove to yourself you still can?
Trying to prove to myself that I still can.
So welcome to the 5 whys. So ask yourself the 5 whys, which is effectively asking yourself why, or more ruminating thoughts, to the point where you get to the actual root cause of why you want to do something. Yours is basically trying to prove yourself, because you've had in a position where, whether there have been times you've let yourself down, you've let habits go, and you're like, okay, cool, like I need to reprove myself. But you don't need to prove anything. You have the worth, you have the capability, you're already all that you need. But we go through these ways of life trying to set things up to give us challenges, to give us obstacles that we can prove wrong. For instance, prove them wrong is proving my own self wrong, making sure that I'm still better in each day. Where does it fundamentally come from? It's meaning that because at some point in our life, we didn't put enough work into something and we successfully failed at it, knowing we could have put more work into it, knowing we could have been better. So we tell the story that I'm doing sprints, I'm doing a marathon, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to whatever it may be, to prove to myself that I can do it. Knowing deep down we already can do it, but because we had one blip in the road, we are going to forever tell ourselves the story of, I need to prove everybody wrong. I need to prove I can still run because it gives me accomplishment. You don't accomplish anything. And everyone's like, yeah, but like I've completed this. It's like, you already have that ability. You have the talent, you have the capability there already. But it's because the story or whatever has occurred, you've now written and created it to stem everything from it. So that means the value of fitness comes because I did something that I couldn't do earlier. For a lot of people, when you see people get into, a lot of, say, like the likes of bodybuilding or sports, and you try and see, and they're like amazing physiques and everything, you talk about them, and they're like, oh, it's just, fitness wasn't for me, and then it just suddenly came upon me, and I just loved every bit of it. But you ask 5 whys, you dig deeper, and what do you find? It's because at one point in time, I didn't look after myself. I didn't like the way I looked. So by me going into fitness, I changed my self-worth. I created a stats. I created values based off that thing. And that's the key to understand, that is, values change from time to time. Values can change from day to day. But if you're not understanding what your values are and what the true belief is coming from those values, then essentially what you're going to do is you're trying to run uphill when you have no legs. It's not going to work.
So what would you say about someone who is procrastinating from developing boundaries and structure in their week to actually show up for themselves at the gym, to actually show up, to not like to have structure within their week, full stop, so that they don't feel so overwhelmed about work. They don't feel so overwhelmed about study because they know there's this thing they want to start studying, but then they're overwhelmed with all these other things that are happening in the week. And then they, at the end of the day, there's like, oh, now I have to train at the gym. So now I'm going to start putting more pressure on that. Like, how would you then dissect that so they can actually have boundaries and feel organized and have time organization?
Well, it's like, where, like, I can ask you that pretty easy. Where's the lowest hanging fruit in that?
It would be the boundaries.
Yeah. Because like effectively they're stemming from it, like it's bleeding into everything. There is no boundaries. But a lot of people want to procrastinate, or they want to stop these things, is because it is quite a bit of fear, but it's also, I've showed up for myself a lot of times and I've successfully failed.
Or how about I'm not the person that goes to the gym, and they haven't yet formed that identity of going to the gym.
Exactly. But you also don't, like, I think it's like a lot of times it's like we want to form identities and everything. It's like, it does work 100%. If you create the identity of, for instance, a gym goer, you will successfully make habits easier to go to the gym. It's pretty much simple because it aligns with your identities and those values. But you can still do it without having that identity. The difference is you actually have to understand what it is that you truly want. The difference is everyone wants a bit of every single pie. Instead of going, what pie can I truly have and truly own? Can I do well in before I start looking elsewhere? So for instance, like the two of us, we like looking at multiple disciplines. We like looking at different things. But if we carry on to the point where it's always, ooh, 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 it's because there's some part of us knowing that if we go back and sit there and actually deal with one topic, that means we have to sit there and forget all the other topics, all the other interesting things out there. But that comes at a cost. And we would rather pick from little things than actually absorb the true cost of what's going to go. And people see it the same way, but they don't acknowledge it. It's like, what do you want? You want everything? Yes, of course. Everyone wants everything. But you can't have everything. So a lot of people will end up going, right, like, I want time with my friends, I want time with my family, I want the gym, I want work, I want more money, I want to spend more time doing cardio. It's like, you only have a limited amount of time in your life, in the day. How you choose to live it is going to be a direct relationship with your habits, your values, and what are you willing to forego on. And the problem is, no one wants to forego on anything. No one wants to just go, hey, this is the small little bit I want, and I'm going to work on that. I'm going to create my boundary. This is me. My identity doesn't mean I'm going to go to the gym, but it means I'm going to do this because there's a positive benefit in the further future, and that positive benefit links into something else that I want. So it's like, now you've created something without the identity change. Perfect. Would it be easier if you changed the identity? Yes. But asking everybody to change an identity is not also very, not simplistic, but also not helpful in a sense, because it's like, your identity is a mixture and amalgamation of the years you spent on the planet.
And it's
So
like your self-talk as well.
exactly. So it's like you're trying to take one thing and just suddenly change everything. So for a lot of people, that will be a problem. But simply having that boundary and you going like, these are my 4 walls, and these 4 walls, I control this whole domain. This is me. This is what I do. No thoughts start to disrupt me. I'm the person that feels my emotions. Outside that domain, that can go whatever the hell that's want. But each month, each day, each year, you go, I want to expand that boundary ever so slightly. I was like, you do that for 10 years straight, and you'd be surprised how big that boundary will truly be in what you can do, what you can have in your life, and what you can actually accomplish and be happy about. The problem is we go, I want to have a boundary, and I'm going to make it the size of the city. Like, your boundary can't start at the size of the city. I went, think about how when we created farms in the beginning, it's like someone didn't just go, right, Ruby, you're going to have 400 hectares, and Dallas, you can have 1. No, it was divvied up for how many people. Everyone got similar amounts. They were jagged little borders. They weren't straight because it was resembling what life was. There was things in the way. There was rocks in the way. There was trees in the way. Every boundary was a little bit wobbly. And that's how we end up creating it. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be a little bit of wobbliness. And as time goes on, what did the people do? They increased the boundaries. They didn't just go, let's make this as massive as possible.
That cost though, because it's like, yeah, you want to have these boundaries, but at the same time you want to have everything all at once. But that cost is so big for so many people. It's like, yeah, I want to have this particular topic, but I want to have all these other topics in life, all these other areas in life. How do you, I want to really hone in on the reframing, but how do you get them to make that change to then take the cost to then get what they truly want?
The easiest way I find, and I know you can like talk to quite a lot of people and they always have a different way of doing this, is your main aim should be trying to reduce resistance, not change. So what we mean by resistance is that if you get up in the morning and you feel it's really hard to get up in the morning, right? What is the resistance that is stopping you from getting up in the morning? So it's like, I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay. So the resistance to getting up in the morning is because you actually haven't had a lot of sleep. Well, yeah. Okay. So if we change what time you went to bed, would it be easier for you to get up? It's like, possibly. Cool. Let's give it a go. We've reduced resistance now. So when it works, we haven't changed. Everyone's like, oh, it changed. I'm like, it's still the same behavior. You're still going to bed. You're still waking up. But the difference is we've changed the resistance applied to the person. So they don't wake up and go, ugh. It wakes up now going, oh, okay, I feel better. So it's like, everyone's like, oh, you've just reframed it. I was like, exactly. We've taken resistance where the resistance is. It's like, if you want to look at it in terms of it going like, if someone's doing something in the gym, I can make it really hard for you if I add a lot of weight. Or I could start you off easy and go, right, look, the resistance is down low. I'm going to get you confident. We're going to make you feel better. And the person's like, yeah. And now we build. So that's how you've just created a boundary. You've reduced your resistance to the point where you know you can handle it. So it's like, if you start looking at things where people start giving you headbutting with you and like, or say struggling with things, reduce the resistance of what is occurring from whatever that problem may be. And then things will start to effectively change in your life. But you actually haven't gone through change. You've just looked at things and gone, where's the resistance that has been applied to my life? And if I just sidestep, sweet, there's no more resistance. And that's the biggest thing. So that reframing aspect comes into the point is when you look at it and go like, right, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? And where does this fit in my values? And then go, where is the resistance that comes from us? The reframe pretty much shows up straight away. I love like your face is like,
I just actually had a brain orgasm, if that's what you want to call it. But wow. Okay. Wow. What is it that you actually want? Values. Where is the resistance? Like, what is it that you actually want? What is it that you need? Resources. What is the resistance? The resistance is the gap. Fuck. The resistance is the gap between your qualities and your resources. As soon as you break that resistance, those resources now become who you are. They are your qualities. And you can now say, I am this person. I am doing this thing because it is aligned with the value. What is it that you want? What do you need to get to what you want? You can't get what you want with what you want. It doesn't work that way. What do you need to do? And that is where, rewind back to the start of this episode, you need to get comfortable with discomfort, because what you need isn't always what you want, because you haven't yet made the connection. It works in a chain. Those three different elements are in a chain. There's the values, in the middle is your identity, your qualities, and on the end is your resources. So start reframing your identity as qualities, because you're not just one freaking thing. You're a multitude of things, and those things are called qualities. And you have those qualities. You are that person because they satisfy something that you want in life. They may not be helpful qualities, and you have the power to get rid of those. And there's something you touched on about the gym, which I loved, and about the reducing the resistance. And the thing is, the way that the body works is within the first 4 weeks, pretty much, you don't really see measurable changes in hypertrophy. That's all neural work. And the same goes with actually having fucking patience with what you're doing. Like, patience and consistency are the big thing, but you don't see changes straight away. You get frustrated at the fact that you're stuck with just a 20-kilo bar and you're not seeing any changes in your body. Oh, I just got started. You need to actually go through that uncomfortable growth spurt phase. You need to go through that discomfort of nothing changes just yet. Your body needs to adapt. It needs to adjust before it adapts. Once it adjusts to the new stimulus you're providing it, then it actually is able to adapt, and then it can actually grow. Yep. And it all comes with that next actionable step. And I can't believe that mindgasm. Holy shit, I have so much energy thinking about that now. Connection.
Oh, I love it. It was brilliant because you could watch in terms of, like, for obviously no one can see this part, but for anyone listening, it's an aspect of, when things start clicking in and you start watching the body start like highlighting. So it's just like eyebrows start to raise. You see more of a kind of like adrenaline hit, so that pupils start to dilate, and you just start seeing smile coming in, and then you give the penny drops and bang. And that's when you know. And it's like, once you get that in your life for a lot of things, you start recognizing, oh, wait, life can actually be a lot simpler. But I will always tell everyone, you are going to have multiple penny drops through the rest of your life, and that is going to be the key. Because it's not just like, as like you just went through now, it's just like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Yes, it does. And you can frame it and it all works perfect. But that doesn't mean you're not going to have another obstacle around the way where you're going to have that actual penny drop in a different way, in a different form, or you have to readapt that same thinking to apply to the situation.
You need to visualize things different ways to finally get through that block. Like, it's not something you just get overnight. And we ended the conversation on such a bang. It's going to be such a prelude into whenever we end up ever like figuring out what the hell we want to talk about next. But I want to actually ask you questions now based on all of this, just to summarize. The first thing is, in this world of chaos that with a lot of things we can't control, what are your biggest habits and non-negotiables every single day?
Oh, that's easy. Gym time never changes. It's the same time every single day, 10 o'clock. I'm like, every single client knows, I'm like, you can message me at 10 o'clock. I ain't replying. I was like, that is my non-negotiable. Ensuring that I do some form of cardio is a non-negotiable. Cardio actually surprisingly came in as a non-negotiable when I stepped away from looking at it more as a heart benefit and everything, and just as an aspect of clearing my head. So I start the morning with a non-negotiable bit of cardio, because I'm like, I'm starting on a position where everything is like, good. Now I've got a clearer mind, and now I can tackle the day and whatever comes up with an actual clarity instead of starting the day waiting for everything to catch up, right? So that's the position I always have the non-negotiables. Other times for non-negotiables is spending time to actually just remind myself how far I've come and how far I've yet to go. And the reason for that is that we often forget what changes have occurred in such a short amount of time. Like even looking for myself in terms of knowledge acquisition for the last year has exploded, but also being in position to help other people, that we often forget about what has changed. So it's been that non-negotiable that I need to remind myself that look where you were a year ago, look where you were 1 month ago, look where you were 1 week, what has improved and how you've improved and what you've changed. And then I write about that. And then I go back and actually read some of the things from a year ago on the same day and go like, man, that guy was an absolute tool. Like, who was he? Like, but I'm going to be saying the same thing in a year's time about me because the insights are always there. So it's always making sure that it's a non-negotiable so that I know that I can read back and see the different emotions. I can see the emotions come out. I can see the thoughts that I was going through. And that gives me always a aspect to remind myself that I'm always there for myself. So those are pretty much my 3 non-negotiables.
It's true, because you are really only there for yourself. And I just have to say, when you said the cardio thing, it was never a non-negotiable until you reframed how you perceive it. And the same goes for the gym. If you're perceiving it as something you have to do to get this surface level goal, instead of something you get to do, something you get to enjoy to improve all these other qualities of you that align to your values, then it's going to be something that you just enjoy. Like, I freaking love lifting. I love lifting more than anything. And that's why I'm lifting 5 days a week now, not 3, because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel strong. And surface level goals, I actually am seeing my muscles start to grow again now, versus when I was just doing more running than lifting. Now I'm doing medium running and more lifting, and I'm seeing the results, which makes me feel confident within my body, makes me feel confident within my selfies, and confident aligns with validation from myself, and that aligns with my values. Last question, what's your favorite word?
What's my favorite word? Oof. Fuck. Jeez, that's a very good one. Oh, it would be alternating snatches, so dumbbell snatches, because my barbell snatches is a little bit worse for wear. So alternating snatches into a med ball slam into sprints. So you do 7 snatches on each side, you do 15 med ball slams, and you do a 500-meter sprint. And you do that as many times as you can in a 30-minute time cap.
My favorite word, if you ever want to try it, my favorite word that I've ever done is 6 devil's presses. Set into the pyramid of from 21 down to 3, and you go down. You go down in, I think you go down in 3s from 21 down to 3 on the Airdyne bike of calories.
Oh, nasty.
And then you set that with the wall ball.
Ew.
And you do it until you get from 21 to 3 on the Airdyne. That was my favorite.
Nah. Like, it's so funny because at times, like, I always like looking going, all right, like where's the push, at the top. And I had a workout, I think it was about a month ago, with one of the guys. He's a Swedish weightlifter, national weightlifter. So like the dude is insane when it comes to his cardiac output. So I was like, you could rate the workout, right? So we had to do it for an hour workout. And we started off on a rower, so it was like tandem. So it'll be 1,000 meters rowed between with the 2 of us, and so we went 100 meters off. But when you're off resting, you're doing 4 burpees every 60 seconds, and that continues through the whole hour workout. So we did. It was, oh my lord, I have done so many burpees in my life. It was ridiculous. And then once we get to round 3, we have 10 devil presses. We have 20 snatches into, what was it? Oh yeah, into 12 wall balls. That was round 2 with every minute. Yeah, it starts going crazy. And by the time at the end of it, like I was lying on the ground and he was just like, I'm ready for round 2. And I was like, no, no, I am gone. That's the day I was literally looking up at the roof at the gym and I was like, I think I'm dying here. It really feels like I don't know what my body was numb. I was there and I was like, right, there is different levels to WODs. I'm like, I'm happy sticking with my sprints.
Wow. The very last what I did before I stopped doing WODs and just got into just the bodybuilding stuff, it was a really hard one. It was, you had to do barbell thrusters. And it was just 6 barbell thrusters, but then you had to do a sled push, sled pull, sled push, sled pull, and then starting at 10 burpees, you had to go all the way up to 20. So it was 10 rounds, so 10 to 20. Wait, 11 rounds because it was inclusive. 10 to 20 burpees in between each one, and then you had to do dumbbell bent over row. So you had all elements of the conditioning, the pull, the push, and the burpees. So that was the last one I've ever done. Like it took freaking like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely would stop on that one. Talking about thrusters, I was doing a clean and jerk yesterday, practicing, and ended up chipping my tooth.
Oh.
It was so funny because I was like, be aggressive, and I went, what? Didn't move my head back and went bang, like bottom tooth went. And I was like, I was there with one of my mates and everything. He's like, you okay? And I'm like, uh-huh. And then like spat out. Oh, and he was like, was it you? I was like, yeah. He was like, ouch. I'm like, mm-hmm. So at least I got that repaired last night. But like, yeah, I was like, thank you, freaking thrusters and clean and jerks. Like, but yeah, beauty.
They're funny. Yeah, I'm over WODs now. But yeah, so that was one hell of an episode, and thank you for listening. Don't forget to share it on your podcast. As usual, you'll have notes below from all the notes I took, plus Dallas's amazing Instagram, which you'll see the emotions post I mentioned and boundaries ones. Highly recommend actually reading the captions because there's a lot of value in those. So much value. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next podcast.